We're gonna do a couple of smaller items first before we get to the 40B item. For those who don't know, I'm Bill Andrews. I'm chairman of the Zoning Board of Appeal. This is going to be a working meeting. For those who don't know the difference, it's not Groundhog Day. We're not doing the same meeting again. Tonight's meeting for the 40B is going to focus pretty much exclusively on traffic. Can everyone hear me, by the way, or should I use the mic? You can hear me? Okay, good. All right. But we have a couple of smaller ones to get through first. Let me switch glasses here. Okay. All right. Okay, I think we're going to start this evening. We have a continued variance from last time for 126 Elm Street. David Duffy, is you or your representative here?
Were you looking at podium?
Sure, go for it. Yeah, if you don't have a teacher voice, I taught for 34 years, so if you don't have a teacher voice, please use the mic.
Sure thing. For the record, John Federico with Garrier and Hellnon. Unfortunately, Jeff Stefanik couldn't make it tonight. He did ask me just to cover. From my understanding for the project, we had a mislabeling of the original zoning for it. It was labeled on our plan as SRA district. It was actually, I believe, the AR district for it. The side yard setback, as well as the front yard setback, did change between the two zones.
Right.
But in either case, with our original existing house that was there and garage, both front yard setback and side yard setbacks were non-conforming.
Right.
We did have a slight footprint change in June of this year, but it was actually to reduce the size of the footprint. So as of right now, we're just requesting, I believe it would be a variance, possibly special permit, I'm sorry about terminology there, but just to allow for the front yard setback of 42 feet.
Yeah, and the building sites and all, none of that's changed on the map. It was just mislabeled is what my understanding is. Am I correct, Mike?
That's my understanding as well.
Okay. Small matter, but important to get all the details correct. So I'm glad you guys brought it back to us. Any questions? Mike, if you have any questions, can you just blurt out? You're online, so I don't know.
I just confirmed that he can hear just fine, but I was asking him to test his mic so he can actually vote. So I think he's working on that right now. He did confirm that he can hear.
Okay. Just to the board members, to make note-taking a little easier for Amy, if what we're going to do is for each vote, we'll start with you, then go to you, and then to Mike, and then to me. Okay, I'll be last on every single one. So, Mike, I hope you heard that. Okay, and do you guys have any questions about this previous matter that came up before for this?
I'll look it over. I don't. It seems straightforward.
Yeah. Okay. For those who aren't familiar, with the exception of frontage, in which we almost never give any give or take on that, side setbacks is something we have a little bit of play with, and 8 feet is something we can accept.
Okay.
You're not so close to a building that you couldn't maintain the building without going on your neighbor's land. The site hasn't changed because the lettering on the map changed. Everything else is still the same.
Yep.
Okay.
And just for the record, we did make an improvement on what the original condition was. I believe it was like 31 or so feet for
Yep.
front yard setback, so it did get pushed back about 8.5, 9 feet or so.
Excellent. Excellent. All right. So I need a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve the variance for 126 Elm Street. I second.
All right. All in favor, say aye.
You did roll call.
Oh, roll call. Sorry. Roll.
Don Spargo.
Don Spargo, aye.
Aye.
Michael? some days Zoom isn't great. Can you, thank you.
Oh, I saw a message.
Let me just try to give Mike some technical assistance.
Okay. Please be patient with us. Thank you. Yeah. So did you see the charging documents? Okay. So, we've never had these before from Mike. This is the first couple meetings we've ever seen these. But we might want to make sure that we follow the conditions that have been out in them. Particularly for the in-laws. Right. Because we want to make sure that Board of Health thing gets in there and makes a good solution. We call him on the phone.
Yeah, can you call him?
He could drive down here faster. He only lives like, like a half mile up the street.
Hi, Michael. It's okay. Could you just give your yay or nay?
Hold on 1 second.
You can do it right over the phone.
You can just say yay or nay on the phone right now.
Yay, what, you said yay?
Okay, that was for 126 Elm Street, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
I'm
Yep.
looking at my iPad.
Okay, that's okay.
And
We'll-
Bill Andrews,
We'll call you
yay,
back if you're not
make it
there by the
unanimous.
next vote.
Thank you so much, I do appreciate that.
Thank
Yes,
you.
thank you. And thank you for the attention to the
Yes.
detail.
No problem. Would the board of the town need any extra copies of the plan at all?
Just make sure that Amy has a copy, okay? Be very aware that this has to be registered with the Worcester Registry. We've had a big problem with people not doing that. There is a 20-day appeal period, and Amy will notify you after the appeal period is done, and she'll give you the letter to bring up to
Okay.
the records.
Yeah, they actually need to come pick it up in town hall,
Sure thing.
and then
Yeah.
you get registered, but you'll get a letter with all the instructions.
Okay, great. I'll make sure I write down my email for you.
Yeah, if you want
and
to
then
put it on
I'll
the
have
sign-in,
this,
that's fine.
Copy here, fold out for you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Appreciate it.
Okay, we have an application by Lee and Janet, I'm going to pronounce this wrong, Maloney? Maglione. I think my daughter, do you have a daughter? Yeah, I think my daughter knows your daughter. Anyways, requesting a special permit for accessory apartment at 860, of 864 square feet to be attached to existing home and a garage location at 125 Warren Street. You want to, now it's very casual, you want to just come up and tell us what you'd like to do. If you have any sketches or plans, if you can show us to us. Our biggest concerns is usually things like side setbacks. Is it an existing building or is it something new? But we have only turned one of these down in like the 15 years I've been on, and that's because they wanted to put grandpa in a small home with no bathroom.
So our intent is to build a garage with an in-law apartment above. So we have an existing primary residence, 125 Warren Street, just under 3 acres of land. We meet all the setbacks, so we're about 150 feet off the road, we're 150 feet or so off the rear. We're 50 feet on one side and maybe 75 feet on the other side.
That's excellent to hear that you meet all the setbacks.
Yeah.
Excellent. having gone down this path many times, can I make the recommendation that you guys really think about ADA handicap accessibility? Putting the blocking for the handrail in for the bathrooms. You might even want to think about putting in some sort of either a lift or ramp to get up there. I had to have an octogenarian in-laws live with me this summer, and carrying him in and out of the house was quite a burden. So please think about that. Little things like recessing the shower floor when you build it so that you don't have any trip hazard, that you can roll right into the shower with no curb. Pat Roach is a phenomenal resource on how to do it right. Any questions, concerns, comments from the other members of the board? You guys are just as much in charge here as me.
So just to reiterate, the bylaw says 4 family members that are related by homeowner by blood, adoption, or marriage.
Our daughter and 2 young boys.
There you go. Got it.
Is the garage attached or detached in the existing structure?
It will be attached with a mudroom or breezeway or deck or whatever, but it's very close, so it would be within 10 feet of the existing structure.
Have you been to the Board of Health to see if they approve due to septic?
That's already been approved, yes, and we have a plan and an engineered plan for a septic upgrade, which will happen as long as this is approved. But that's already been approved, actually, and it's already been to the board. So yes, we need a bigger septic to accommodate the additional bedroom.
Okay, I'm just double checking this thing here. So just be aware that this is a special permit, and the special permits don't last forever. They're basically for you guys. If you ever sell the house, they have to come back before us to make it an in-law apartment. That may change. Massachusetts is looking at changing that zoning and making in-law apartments to be by right. The governor's put that in her proposal a month and a half ago, back in August or so. Okay, can I get a motion, gentlemen?
Can we ask before there's a motion, can we ask if Mike can, if his microphone is working yet?
Oh, Mike, is your microphone working?
Can you hear me?
Yes, we
There we
can.
go.
Yay.
All right.
That's much better. That's like you're right here with us. I like that.
Okay.
Okay. Why don't you make the motion?
Motion to approve the special permit for 125 Warren Street, add the accessory apartment with conditions. Conditions being the 5-year expiration, Board of Health approval.
Okay.
Second the motion.
Okay. Let's take a vote.
Don Spargo, aye.
Bob other items.
Mike?
Michael Gill, aye.
And Bill Andrews, aye. I'll make it unanimous for those that are here. Thank you. Same thing applies to you guys. It does get registered with the registry. Michael has a letter that has all the conditions in it. We're very glad that you're adding this sort of housing. It's important that we have housing that fits elderly too. Just make sure that you get it registered, and it's a 20-day appeal period. Someone could appeal it within 20 days. I haven't seen it happen very often, but it should be fine. Amy will contact you with all the details. All right, thank you guys very much.
Mr. Thomas?
Okay, special permit for 93 Crockett Road, application Eugene and Lynn Dipoto, requesting a special permit to construct a pre-existing non-conforming single-family dwelling with regards to frontage area and setbacks. Just some history for the board. I don't know if you've dealt with Crockett Road. Crockett Road is zoned AR. It pre-exists the zoning regulations in town, nothing down there meets the zoning codes.
Right.
If someone builds a front step, they have to come to us for a variance. It's almost like they're all old summer camps.
Right.
Generally, in the past, as long as they're staying within the bounds of what they already have, we're usually pretty good with it. But they're just a lot of small houses packed on top of each other. And it's lovely views. But anyways, you want to tell us what you're doing, sir?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and board members. My name is Henry Lane here, and I'm here on behalf of the Depotos. I'm sure you've seen the application. The property is at 93 Crockett Road, and it is, as the chairman indicated, this is a pre-existing building that's been there for many, many years, since long before zoning. And the Depotos would like to reconstruct the existing home to make it into their permanent residence. Actually, this lot is actually a little bigger than many of the lots because it's a double lot.
That's on, oh, good.
It's a double lot, so it actually has 150 feet of frontage, which is still less than the 240 required, but more than many there. And it's
And some of it's on the other side of the road too, if I remember right.
on the lakeside. Well, it actually crosses the road. It's on
Yeah,
both
it crosses
sides.
the
It's you know, so
It's in the middle of the lots.
Right.
it's a very, very unusual situation. And surprisingly enough, despite the fact that it's a small lot, we do have side lot setback that meets requirements. We have front lot setback that meets requirements. We don't have rear lot setback, but the existing building is 23 feet from the pond, and the proposed construction will be 33 feet, so we're actually pulling it back from the water. We've been to the Conservation Commission. We have gotten approval from the Conservation Commission, have an order of conditions, so I think we've got that addressed. We obviously have an existing septic system. But in any event, that's basically the outline. It's fairly straightforward. Upton has a very generous special permit provision for reconstructing of existing non-conforming buildings, and I think we fall well within the parameters that are allowed. So we'd appreciate your consideration and granting the special permit.
Okay. I'm glad to see that you're pulling it back even further, so it's less non-conforming than it was in the past.
That's correct.
That's always a good thing to do, and the boards like to hear that. And I'm glad you've already been through conservation, because that's, as you know, near the water, that's a big
It's
thing.
critical.
Yeah, yeah. Have you talked to Board of Health?
Yes. Mr. Federico may have the answer to that.
John Federico with Gary Belmont. I have been in touch with Board of Health prior to getting the conservation permitting done. We have been in touch with Paul McKeon on the site. He did ask for 3 items to be addressed on the existing septic system to have that upgraded. It was installation of a vent pipe back to the pump chamber. I believe there was the redoing of the septic tank, which we are proposing that and got the conservation permitting for it. And then I believe the last one was just completing a Title V inspection, which I was able to do. So as of right now, we're not changing any bedroom counts for the new proposal. Septic system is approved by Board of Health.
You guys got your ducks in a row, I'll give you that. Gentlemen, what are your thoughts and concerns?
Well, I just had a question on when it was built, the year, but I think I looked it up online. It sounds like 1940. Does that sound accurate?
Sounds about right.
Okay. I just was wondering if it was before.
Yeah.
Being on the historical commission and everything.
Yeah. Yeah, there's a lot of those camps down there are put together pretty shoddy,
Right.
I guess I would say. You'd never meet today's installation codes. Let me just run through there.
The other one was on what is the proposed height of the structure?
Again, you have a height, it's less than, it's within the parameters. I can't tell you the exact how.
Okay.
Something else that's, I would ask that whoever makes the motion, that we put in there, that neighborhood is tight, it's right with the lake. Down lighting that stays on your property, and that would be a
I'm
condition.
sure that's fine.
Okay.
Our power costs are going up, so I don't think we want to have any more light than necessary.
Yeah, yeah, just for everything, the light shouldn't leave the property. I mean, you're gonna see some light, like if you have a street light, so you can drive in your driveway. But trying to keep that to a minimum. Mike, do you have any questions or concerns?
No, I don't. Oh, I have one question. Is there a set of plans submitted with this application for the house?
Yes.
Mike says yes.
Okay, I just couldn't find it in the material, but it says yes and yes.
We used to have a member that would argue about the paint color of a building. And we're like, that's not our job. But certainly a set of plans is within our purview. But I can take them as Mike, and everything he says is accurate about them pulling it back and everything besides.
Yeah, it might have been hard to, if you're looking at the scanned copy, it might be a little hard to see the existing structure as is depicted on the plan, because I think it was a light gray line when it got
Yep.
scanned in. But you can clearly see the arrows as it's pointing to where the existing setbacks were for the existing building as compared to what was proposed. And yeah, you see, they're pulling it back, making it more conforming.
Okay. All right.
But I'd say, per what the gentleman offered, well within the parameters offered by the bylaw for the special permit for a pre-existing non-conforming single-family home.
Okay. So conditions, and Mike has a document that has the conditions about the lighting and making sure you go through Board of Health and Conservation, which it sounds like you've already done.
Correct.
Do you want to give me, give me a motion?
I make a motion to approve a special permit for 93 Crockett Road with conditions that have been discussed.
Second.
Okay, I'll take a vote of the board.
Alan Spargo, aye.
Bob Butler, aye.
Mike?
Michael Gill, aye.
And Bill, I'll make you unanimous. Bill Andrews, aye.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you. 20-day appeal period, and make sure it gets registered with the oh no, it does have to be registered. Does that have to be registered?
Yes, it does.
Okay, yeah, all right, let's get that registered then too. All right, Pearl Street, a special permit by Haley Mozart, requesting a special permit to approve a 432 square foot accessory apartment.
That's fine, I'll take those too.
House was originally constructed in 2017. Welcome.
Hi.
As you can see, the accessory apartments go through pretty easily. So you're in good hands here. What can we do for you?
I just purchased this house Monday, actually, from my parents. They have received the permits already for the building, and it was built in 2017. They just were not aware they had to get one more permit. So that's what I'm here for today, to make it illegal.
Okay. Do you meet the side setbacks and things like that? Actually, you've already got the building permit, so you must meet all those things already?
Yeah.
Amy's shaking her head yes, so that's good for you.
I'm not sure why it wasn't brought up at the time. Yeah, I'm not sure.
Excellent. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Gentlemen, any questions, concerns?
Has there been any discussion with Board of Health regarding this yet?
For sewage?
For sewage?
Oh, it meets the sewage requirements. We have the largest septic available for Port Records.
You know, the Title V has been done
Yes. I believe in 17.
in 17, but not recently.
I'm not sure.
Not
Okay.
sure.
The structure was built at the same time, right?
In 17.
Yeah, so it should be the same, right? Shouldn't have changed,
You're not changing the number of bedrooms, are you?
right?
No, see, there's the key right there.
Right.
It's the number of bedrooms, so the same, as long as the number of bedrooms is the same,
Yeah.
that's what it's based off of anyways.
Okay.
So you'll be fine.
Thank you.
No, good, great question. I don't have any questions or concerns. And I forgot to ask this for the other ones, I want to apologize, I usually ask for abutter comments. Any abutters have comments? No. Mike, do you have any questions or concerns?
I do not.
Okay, then let's do this again. Let's get a motion from either one of you.
I'll make a motion to approve the special permit for 10 Pearl Street.
I second it.
Okay. Mike? Oh, sorry, so we'll take a vote of the board.
Mount Spargo, aye?
Bob Upton, aye.
Mike?
Michael Gale, aye.
And Bill Andrews, I make it unanimous vote of the board. Is here for the year. Okay,
Thank you.
pretty easy. 20-day appeal period, so that, and it does have to get registered with the Court of Records up in Worcester. Amy will help you all with that, and she'll send you, you can come in, see her in about 20 days, and she'll give you everything you need.
Great. Thank
Okay?
you.
Thank you very much. Glad you're staying in town.
Yes, thank you.
Okay. All right. Thank goodness you're here. We were gonna have to take a short recess if we weren't. Sorry, Mike. Hey, you know what? You're here. We'll give Bob Humes a hard time. Okay, continuation of public hearing for the comprehensive permit for 47 Main Street, AKA 0 Main Street, an application of Lobusser Building Corp. Of 1 Charles U. Road, Hopedale, for a comprehensive permit. Yes, sir.
Do you want to take up some other business first? We're still waiting for Bob to join. Because Michael's going to
Bob,
recuse himself.
Bob
Yeah.
Humes. I don't think you're going to see Bob Humes.
Okay.
In fact, he won't be around till 8, so we're going to be down to the full meeting.
Okay.
Yeah, I was as happy as you are.
Let's discuss that with the applicant.
What do we
Oh.
have, how many members?
We have 4.
Or,
Was Bob here for the last?
yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Have you guys adopted the Mullen Rule?
No, we have not.
You have not? Do we want to wait for him, or do you maybe ask the applicant what they want to do? What time is it now?
I'm willing to ask the applicant. What would you like to do in that case?
What are the, Chris, what are the options?
It's, we're down a member here.
Yep.
So I guess he's coming at 8. I don't know if you want to wait till 8 until he comes here, or continue, or just proceed with the members that we have. I mean, it's ultimately the board's choice, but I just didn't know if you had any input about it.
Can I have a few minutes to talk to Ed? Ed.
Is that around the corner?
Yeah, he's around.
Yeah, go talk to Ed. I was going to just hold for 2 minutes. One of the members was, I swear to God this is true, he was up getting his furnace serviced up in New Hampshire, and the guy was like 7 hours late to come do it. So he gave me a call, I don't know, 5 or 5:30, saying he was just finishing up and trying to get down here. The reason we're so concerned about it is, in this, we have not adopted the rule. In other towns, if you miss a meeting, you can watch the tape of it and then still vote on the matter. In this town, you cannot, which we got to talk to our kindly town manager about adopting that provision, because we can actually adopt it. Is there anything holding us up from doing so, sir?
Article from,
From who?
no, there's no, I mean, it's really working with the Board of Selectmen to see if we want to adopt the Mullen Rule.
I'm only one,
You don't-
and that's not who I am today, I'm just an audience member.
It is an audience member. Well, we're going to pass that ball to your court, because it does,
Yeah.
this thing needs, I think, 4 members of the board anyways, and we have.
Well, it's whatever members. I mean, it's, you need a majority, just a simple majority. So even if it's just.
We've got 5, we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, we've got 4 here out of 5. He has to recuse himself.
Oh, okay, so you have 4.
Yeah,
So,
you
you
have
know,
4.
you're still good. It's just the problem with comprehensive permit applications is we're gonna have a lot of hearings. So if somebody else has to be late or
Yeah,
cause
yeah,
a
it's
problem.
a thin margin.
I would hate to miss somebody, yeah.
It'd almost be better to just continue to next month. It'd be safer to do that, truthfully.
There is some other business on the agenda if you want to.
Sure, what's the other?
If you want to table this and then.
Yeah, we'll table this. What's,
Yeah.
oh, the Shore Road? Is that the other business?
Yeah, I mean, it was, are we confident that Bob's going to be here by 8 o'clock? Or,
I'm not.
okay,
I mean, I can give him a quick call.
yeah. That might be helpful, just see where he is.
Yeah, let me just step out and I'll make a quick call. I don't want to embarrass the poor guy.
Already embarrassed enough, right?
You know, what was the one thing I said to you guys when we started this process?
Show up.
Show up. I was really clear about that. So Kevin,
Yes.
one of the members is late.
Yeah.
What's really worrying me as chairman is we're at the front end of this. You know, we could lose a voting member at any point. And to be down to just 4 voting members this early in the process is a real concern to me. Mike's gonna see if he could pull over and we could do it by phone. He could join in using the cell phone. But he doesn't have a smartphone, so I don't know that that's really gonna be possible.
Oh, he doesn't have a smartphone.
Is there,
He should
should
be
we
dial in.
What's that? Oh, he could dial in for
Yeah.
Zoom. There's a dial in for Zoom.
Yeah, just the dial.
Sorry.
Mike, the trouble with Michael is Michael has to recluse himself. So Michael doesn't count.
Right.
Because he's to recluse himself. He literally lives across the street. So that knocks that member off. If you really want to go forward with less numbers, I'd be willing to do that. Otherwise, I would say, our bad, I would do a continuance. Because I'm really worried about, we're at the front end of this and we'll be down a voting member already. But I'm going to put it on you guys and give you the option. If you really want to go forward with
Let's
this,
see if I can get a hold of him first.
okay, Mike's going to try to get a hold of him. But if you have a smaller board, I mean, you just have less, you need a certain number of votes to get it going. You know what I hope you guys understand what.
I understand this completely, and we would not want to lose a member this early.
Okay, so we're in the same line then.
When do
Okay.
you expect the missing?
He's talking to him.
He's talking to him now. I just called him on the phone too. He's driving down, but he's just at the top end of 495. He didn't plan this well today. He expected someone to be at his place at 8 this morning and they didn't show. But considering you and I are on the same page with that, if we don't get him to join by phone, I think we'll probably continue to next time. And I would apologize profusely to everybody here. But, yes?
If you postpone a month, does that mean everything gets pushed back a month?
No.
So will you cover 2 topics next month? Is that what the intent
Yeah.
is?
Yeah. For those who don't know, tonight's topic was almost exclusively traffic. There is a huge traffic study online, 120 pages, including all the raw data, which I did read. What do you say?
He's gonna pull over and give me a call back, and I'll get him hooked up with calling in.
Okay, good. I think to be safe, I'd rather not talk about anything to do with this for the next 20 minutes, until the next 10 minutes, until that member is online with us. There's legal procedures. He's probably, yeah, look at him shake his head over there. So I'm going to come around and pass out chocolate to everybody. Yes?
Can I ask one question? Your 40B legal advisor.
Yes.
Do you feel this would be acceptable if the other member joined by phone?
Yeah, it's been advertised as a virtual hybrid meeting. It's hooking up to the same connection as other members. But
Okay. So, general business, requesting guidance from the ZBA to the building commissioner on how we should interpret the conditions for 31 Shore Drive decision. This was a in-law apartment, for those who don't know, on Shore Drive. We put some conditions on the applicant to put in some vegetative screening. Basically, what we wanted to do is to make sure that like headlights from parking did not go right into the neighbor's house. And we had put as an order of condition that there would be some vegetation put in. Now I know you're the abutter.
33 Shore Drive.
Right, and I complimented you highly last time because you came with some solutions, and I like that.
Thank you.
Is Pat Actually, Amy, are you representing the building department? So Pat?
Michael was supposed to be.
Oh, Michael's
I
supposed
think we're just looking for clarification for the owner at 31 Shore Drive as to what needs to be planted by
And by when?
wind, height, distance, number of shrubbery.
Okay. Eric, you were part of that discussion. Were you two gentlemen part of that Shore Drive? I don't think, Michael, were you part of that? Oh. Michael Gleb, were you part of that discussion?
I was there.
What's that?
I was at the meeting. I do have a suggestion, though. Why doesn't the homeowner submit a landscaping plan
Well,
so that it can be objectively seen?
the reason is because, through the chair, is because the public hearing is over on it.
Right.
So this is just a question coming from the building commissioner as to how he should interpret that condition that was placed on that decision. So he was looking for some guidance on how to apply that condition.
Some clarification. Okay.
Otherwise, that's a sound plan, but we can't proceed with that.
Well, trees grow, but you don't want to be, have them this big.
Yeah, primary point is to block headlights, right?
Yeah, I have a suggestion. I mean,
Yep.
I've done some research. I have some arborvitaes on another border of my property, and the deer just eviscerate them. So, many people don't know this, but they really like arborvitaes, and that's why you see a bunch of them that look like they're umbrellas, basically, because that's how high they can reach up.
How about yews?
I'm sorry?
Yews.
Well, my suggestion would be something called giant arborvitaes. The difference is that they're more loose, they're not your smooth, they're more of a loose tree, they're deer resistant, and they grow at about 3 feet a year. So if you got 5-foot trees, maybe 12, 15 of them across the back of the property would be sufficient to, you plant them about 5 feet apart. So basically would be my suggestion.
Have you discussed that with the neighbor?
The neighbor has issued a restraining order against me, and the neighbor also tried to take out the neighbor tried to take out a restraining order against me.
Okay, so she's present, so we can ask. I really like the fact that you were willing to plant something. I like that very much. I think the thing we want something. I'm not familiar with the giant. I'm looking it up right now here. I think deer resistant smart. I know there's a couple different trees that will work for that. It's a little late to plant it right now, but I think you start getting a 5-foot tall tree, it starts getting a lot more expensive. You can buy them like 3 to 4, it's at least 3 feet. That's when it really starts to grow and grow pretty fast. I used to plant them, so familiar. Let's see, April, May. You can plant by May.
Yeah, usually.
So to clarify this for the building department,
Okay.
can we say that you will have a line of some appropriate greenery, evergreen? I do like the suggestion of the giant arborvitae, but I do know there's some other ones. Weston Nursery is a fantastic source, but let's say by, May 25th, call it in the middle of the month. May 25th, you'll have these in
Okay.
and have them spaced. I wish I was a plant person.
I think it depends on the plant you get.
Yeah.
Through the chair,
Yeah.
the giant arborvitaes are approximately 5 feet apart.
What's the total distance we're trying to span?
It's about 90 feet, but I'm willing to accept less. The headlights themselves, you probably could cut that down to 70 or 75 feet, so divided by 5.
Yeah. I like the fact that the giant arborvitaes grow 3 feet a year, but I'm afraid of something that grows very, very wide versus tall and skinny. I've seen some beautiful ones that are tall and skinny. And those lots down there are pretty small, some of them. So I can see why someone would want something that's 3 feet wide versus something that's 20 feet wide. Does that make sense? Me, the biggest thing is the deadline. May 25th. A line of trees that's going to block the headlights from the neighbors. Can you live with that? You can live with that. Okay, is that clear enough for Pat? 3 feet tall trees, spaced whatever's appropriate for that species.
To cover 90 feet.
To cover, I'm not sure about the 90 feet. I mean, 90 feet's a lot. You know, but whatever that end of the driveway where the driveway comes in, do they come in and?
Yes, they have I think one of the orders of condition was that the applicant also widen the driveway, which has not
So it has to
been done.
have parked,
But
right.
they've been parking on the line. Facing the line.
Okay. So this is just a clarification of the order of conditions. Those conditions are set. We just were not clear enough to give you a deadline date. You want to give Pat and you that deadline date so you know the deadline date. And what needs to be planted. Some sort of evergreen. I like your suggestion in the past, but let's, I would say, there's lots of good nurseries, but something at least 3 feet tall. 3 feet tall. Okay? Does that work for you?
Well, my suggestion is that you set a number to it and the distance apart based upon the tree. Because if you're not talking giant arborvitaes, they don't grow as wide as you
That's
pointed
right.
out, so they
Right.
have to be spaced more narrowly. I was actually trying to save the applicant some money because
Okay.
you don't nearly need to place as
Okay.
many. And although they do sprawl,
Yeah.
the sprawl, I've done some research, the sprawl isn't that great, that it would be an issue.
Yep. Oh, that's giant arborvitae?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hey guys, can I, 1 second, I just want to let you know I'm here present on the phone and called in Bob Hughes, president.
Excellent.
Everyone's aware of that.
Thank you, Bob.
Thank you.
You thought you could escape. We're not letting you. All right. He's pulling up the what is that? That's one of those costs.
It's like 30, 40 bucks.
Okay. I'm reticent to demand specific species.
Right.
But
Something like it.
something like a giant arborvitae, if he's correct and that's the cheapest thing for you, you might want to go with that. But it has to be spaced such that if we're starting at 3 feet, okay, within, call it 3 years, 4 years, that there should be enough of a wall there. There are other species. I'm a fan of firs and hemlocks, but I'm not a plant person. But our instructions to Pat, May 25th, they got to be planted.
Okay.
Sound good? And thank you for coming tonight. And thank you for coming tonight.
Thank you so much. Appreciate you moving us up.
Yeah, I'm sorry about that. And we're going to continue now. So everyone, thank you for your patience. If you need more chocolate, to sum up here. So we are open for business on the public hearing for the comprehensive permit for 47 Main Street, AKA 0 Main Street. Kevin, you have the floor.
All right. I know it's late. Do you want me to give you a little bit of an update on where we have been and then turn it over to Jeff for traffic, or you just want to the traffic? It'll only take me 5 minutes.
Go for it. Go for the quick, but just for audience members, we're focusing on traffic tonight.
Okay. So first, thank you for being patient and getting the other member on. So since our last meeting, we have scheduled and participated in a site walk with Stantec, which was the peer review that this board picked. And they've met with our civil engineers and ourselves on the site so that they could get a better understanding of what's happening out there. And we're awaiting, obviously, their analysis, which we have not gotten to this point. DNL Engineering, our engineers, we have prepared and submitted the truck simulation plan based upon the fire department, the town of Upton's fire department's largest piece of equipment for their review. That conversation is ongoing, but based on the engineering plan, everything fits and it does work, but we're still talking with the chief and with Dan. Our wetland scientist and consultant, Goddard Consulting, is finalizing their notice of intent, the NOI, for an application for submission to the Conservation Commission, which we expect to be meeting with Conservation at their meeting in December. So that's ongoing. We have also, since our last meeting, we have met with our neighbors at 4 School Street, Paul, and 6 School Street, which is Megan and Daniel. And we have begun the discussions on talking about doing some additional screening. And after our meeting, what I had thought about was maybe it would be a good idea to talk about doing some screening on their property if they wanted us to. So because that could be landscaping that they would have full control over once it was planted, and it's they don't have to worry about the neighbor doing something or letting something die and whatever. On top of that, when we did meet with Megan and Daniel, they did show us that they do have an existing, a very low-lying sort of backyard section. It's all grass. It's usable. They do use it and they mow it, but it's low. It's probably a 2-foot depression. Daniel just sent over some pictures for us. I actually just got them today, showing what it looks like, during some heavy rainstorms. And we had asked them for those pictures because DNL is now going to start to look at that to see. That is certainly, it's a problem that exists on their property. Right. But when we met, they were great to talk to. We were there for a couple hours. So we said that we would have DNL look at potentially helping to solve that problem for them. It would be a combination of some engineering and in discussion with the Conservation Commission, because obviously anytime you move water, we'd have to do that. But we're willing to try to take that step with them.
Thank you.
I've also been in contact with Marcia, who I know is the spokesperson for a big part of the group. And when we talked, I explained that we knew that this meeting was going to be for traffic, and as the chairman said, drainage, drainage, drainage. So that's what we focused on over the last 4 weeks, and that's why I met with the neighbors on School Street, because obviously they're the ones that are downhill. And I think Marcia is talking with her group to see if they can schedule a meeting one evening, probably here, private meeting with us after Thanksgiving. So we're hoping to have that meeting as well. We wanted to update you guys that we were able to work with our lighting professionals. We have upgraded our lighting plan, which we have submitted, and that new lighting plan has 0 spillover off of the property line. So we thought that was very positive. And then obviously onto the traffic. So that was really my update. Jeffrey from Vanessa is our traffic expert, and I guess I'm going to turn it over to him, and he's got the rest of the night.
Thank you.
Thank you.
He wrote the 120-page report. For those who are interested, all of these documents, including the lighting plan and the traffic report, are on our website. You have full access to the same documents that we have full access to. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. If you bear with me for a minute, I'm going to attempt to share my screen here. Being a success. Okay. And I apologize to the member who's on the phone. I'll provide a copy of these slides to the board as well, just so that the member who's not able to be here can actually have these slides as well. By way of introduction, my name is Jeffrey Durkin. I'm a managing partner with Vanessa Associates, and as the chair mentioned, the producer of that document. Fortunately, about 120 pages, most of it is technical appendix, and I know you have a peer reviewer to kind of delve into all of that, and we appreciate the peer review. But I conduct peer reviews for a lot of cities and towns as well. And I would say it's only beneficial to the board, but I think it's beneficial to the public and to the applicant as well. It ultimately results in a better project, and kind of that's what our goal is. And I know the applicant have been talking about the steps that they've been taking to speak with the neighbors and such. And the same goes with the transportation analysis. We want to make sure it's responsive to the town's needs as well. So I have a brief summary of the 120 pages, really focusing on the front end of the report, which is the narrative pieces of it. And I think also by way of an update,
One of the things that we had promised the board, because I know it was concern of the residents and the board as well, was to look at impacts as they relate to Fisk Avenue. So we're actually undertaking that analysis at this time. So by the time we come back before you, that analysis will be completed. We will be providing it to your peer review consultant as well as responses to their comments. We take no exception to any of the comments that were provided. Most of them validate the technical analysis that I'm going to go through with you tonight. So just by way of an overview of the transportation analysis, there is standards that we have to follow in conducting that analysis. That's the first thing that your peer reviewer does, is make sure that it's compliant with industry's practices, but also the Department of Transportation has standards that we have to follow, and I'll touch upon some of those standards. But that's the first thing your peer reviewer does, is make sure everything that's presented before you follows those applicable standards, and therefore, as we're looking at recommendations, that they're consistent with analyses that were conducted per those proper standards. As we look at the overall impact of the project, and we'll talk about the amount of traffic that we're expecting to produce, the project's going to produce during the peak hours. So this is the highest traffic volume hour in the morning, and then also in the evening that occur on Route 140, and how much additional traffic are we going to add as a result of this project. We're predicting it's going to add somewhere between 20 to 30 peak hour trips. So that's the increase that we're going to add. And of course, as you come out from the project site, some of it goes left, some of it goes right. So those numbers, as you get away from the project site, they get smaller and smaller. As a result of that, the net increase in traffic at any intersection is about one additional vehicle every 3 minutes max during the peak hours. So when you think about that timeline, what we're showing in terms of how that relates to increases in delays and vehicle queuing at intersections, before and after the project, you're not going to see an increase in terms of the number of vehicles that are at the intersection stacked up. And if you are waiting, say, on the School Street or Pleasant Street approach, where we know there's delays coming up to 140, if there's basically 5 cars in front of you today, there'll continue to be 5 cars. And the reason for that is that one vehicle every 3 minutes, the intersection is able to process it. It's slow, but it's able to process the additional traffic that the project generates. And so that was our conclusion as it relates to the impact of the project itself. And again, we'll also be looking at Fisk Avenue, because we know the school is on that road. And certainly during the school pickup and drop-off periods, there's a lot of traffic using that road. So we'll understand and be able to provide to you how this project relates to those conditions that are occurring there today. As it relates to the access to the project site, there's 2 things we're looking at. We're looking at sight lines to make sure it's safe to be able to enter and exit the project. We're also looking at delays as it relates to people both just driving along Route 140 that have no interest in the project other than to look at the beautiful landscaping and everything that would be there. That they're not delayed by people trying to turn left to go into the driveway. And then for our residents, also making sure that we don't have excessive delays that would need maybe the driveway to be wide and provide left or right turn lanes. The driveway operates with more than sufficient capacity, so delays are minimal. There's no impedance to the flow of traffic along 140, so those left turners are able to get into the project driveway without slowing down traffic that may be heading in the eastbound direction during the project site. There was one intersection that we had identified as a high crash location, and that is this 140 School Street, Pleasant Street intersection. So we measure a motor vehicle crash rate at that intersection. And so a crash rate is the number of crashes that happen per million vehicles going through the intersection. So that's one performance measure that we perform. And that crash rate is above the state average. So Mass DOT publishes crash rate data so that we can assess that crash rate against historic averages that would occur in the town. And that intersection is above that average as it relates to crash rate. Mass DOT also looks at what's known as equivalent property damage. So that focuses on the severity of the crashes. So it gives points for property damage versus personal injury versus a fatality at an intersection, and it weights those. So it doesn't look at so much the number of crashes in relation to traffic, but it looks at the severity of those crashes. That intersection, as it relates to that severity index, is below the state average. So it's not listed as a high crash location. So crash rate is high, but the type of crashes that are happening are really property damage type crashes and then not serious injury type crashes. So good and bad as it relates to looking at that intersection, but the good is that that intersection is going to be reconstructed in 2025. It's the state's list for improvements as they're going to be looking at the whole 140 corridor. And I'll speak about that in a minute. Very lastly, as it relates to the driveway, sight lines up the driveway. So what we do is we, as a part of our transportation analysis, we measure the speed of traffic on Route 140 and make sure that the sight lines, if you're driving along 140 or if you're exiting the project looking to the left or right, that you have proper sight lines for not the posted speed limit, but the speed that people are actually driving, which that's the critical measurement. So in this area, the posted speed limit is 35 miles an hour. Most of the people are driving somewhere around 36 to 40 miles an hour. So our sight lines are based on 40 miles an hour. So that's the speed at which the majority of the vehicles are driving. And I'll talk about how we do those measurements in a minute. But we far exceed what's required for the safe operation of the intersection as it relates to sight lines. This slide just shows the context of the project site in relation to the Route 140 corridor. And as you can see, there's the elementary school just to the west of the project site and Fisk Avenue. So that's the intersection that we'll be adding to the study area. This depicts the study area that we evaluated. So it basically is 140 between and including the School Street, Pleasant Street intersection and then the Mendon Street intersection to the west. There's a lot of questions often in terms of how we define our study area, and in this case, why Fisk Avenue was not included as a part of our study area. The general rule of thumb, and this is actually through the Department of Transportation, is that at a bare minimum, you should be studying any intersection where the project adds 100 or more peak hour trips. So we're down in the 20 to 30 range. Or you have an increase in traffic that's 5% or more. Those two parameters would indicate that a project would have an impact, and therefore you want to look at the specific intersection. We don't have an increase of 100 or more peak hour trips at either one of these intersections, and the percent increase in traffic is below 5%. So from the standpoint of looking at that criteria, we would have to study any of those intersections. However, from a practical perspective, the rule of thumb for traffic engineers is you look at a major intersection on either side of the site. Because again, if we're looking at traffic coming out of the driveway, some comes left to right, and then it disperses itself, you want to look at the major intersection on either side. Fisk Avenue obviously is an intervening intersection, but major because the elementary school is there, so it's appropriate to add it, and as I said, we're going to be doing that. This slide also depicts probably an important piece as well, which is where there are sidewalks. And so that's where you see the orange line on the slide. So anywhere you see the dashed orange lines, that's where there are existing sidewalks, and any place that you see a blue line at an intersection, that's where there are crosswalks. That's important to us because as you look at the terminology of the document that was produced, it's a transportation study. So we are not only concerned with vehicles, but pedestrians, bicycles, and public transportation access. And so we're looking at all of those modes of transportation. Important because as we have a multi-family project, if there are opportunities to reduce the amount of automobile trips by connecting to sidewalks, by making it safer bicycling, providing amenities in the site such as bike racks and weather-protected bicycle parking. We want to make sure that we're doing all of that, but to do that, we also want to understand what's on the roadway today and what may be there in the future. So this is showing what's on the roadway today. So we have sidewalk infrastructure, so this is walkable. The MassDOT project that's coming through this area is going to improve those sidewalks. It's also going to be adding bike lanes. So that's an amenity as we're thinking about the design of the project, is to make sure to connect the sidewalks to the existing sidewalks and those that will be improved, and then make sure we have bike accommodations within the project site, because those bike lanes are going to provide an opportunity to, again, reduce to the extent we can automobile trips associated with the project. So now I'll just talk about a few of the numbers that we collected in terms of data. So Route 140 in the vicinity of the project site, so if we went out there and measured the traffic that goes by the site over a 24-hour basis, it accommodates just over 6,000 vehicles per day, and that's two-way traffic over 24 hours. We actually measured traffic over a two-day period, which is typical on a weekday, and that's the number that we arrived at. So it's just over 6,000 vehicles per day. 10% of that traffic occurs during the peak hour, so that's an important number. So we're talking about 600 peak hour trips going by the site. Again, that's a bi-direction number. The peak hour in the morning is 7 to 8 in the morning. So if we measure the traffic out there, 7 to 8 is the high traffic volume hour. And then in the evening, it occurs between 4:30, 5:30, and 5 to 6 o'clock. And again, when we measure the traffic, that's when the spike occurs. And so as we're talking about the volume of traffic produced by this project, as I'm talking 20 to 30 trips, During those peak hours, we're adding those numbers on top of the high traffic volume hours on the roadway. So in the morning, we'll show a slide in a minute, if we're reducing 20 trips, I'm adding the 20 trips on top of the amount of traffic that occurs from 7 to 8 in the morning. So it's a peak on top of a peak. And that's what we're analyzing for assessing the impacts of the project. Speed measurements, we measured speed measurements over a 2-day period. So we measured the speed of 12,000 vehicles going by the project site. When we're looking at sight lines, the speed that we're focused on is what's known as the 85th percentile speed. So of the 12,000 vehicles, that's the speed at which 85% of those vehicles travel at or below. And as I mentioned in the initial part of the presentation, that's somewhere around 36 miles an hour roughly is what that came out to be. So it's just slightly over the posted speed limit that occurs in this area. Lastly, there's no public transportation services, which is something that, obviously if it was there, we'd like to connect into that. However, we do know the Council on Aging does provide transportation services. I mention that because as we're thinking about a transportation demand management program for the project, although we don't have bus service to the extent that we have people that can take advantage of the Council on Aging shuttle that they offer, we want to make sure they're aware of that. And so when you look at the recommendations, you'll see that's one of the recommendations, is to make sure people are aware of not only the sidewalks and the biking facilities that will be there, but also the amenities that the town offers. Because obviously these will be residents of the town, and we want to make sure they know the services that are available to them. So as we're assessing the impact of the project, the state requires that we look at a 7-year planning horizon. So when we're going to be speaking in a minute about those delays and the queuing that's happening at the intersection, we're not looking at conditions today to assess the impacts of the project. We're looking at the year 2030. And the reason for that is that allows the developer to go through a process like this, obtain permits that are necessary, and then actually build the project. And then when we're thinking about improvements, we want to make sure that those improvements work not only when they open the project, but that they have some life to those improvements. And then as we're considering those, we're considering some of the planning that the town has done as well. So considering projects that are not yet built, that may be built because permits have been issued, that will add traffic. So we want to make sure we build those numbers into our analysis so that any improvements would have some life to them to accommodate future development as well. So we work with the planning department to understand projects that have been improved and not yet built. And there was one project that was identified for us to include, I think it was Governor's Landing. Yeah, it was 162 residential units. So those numbers are built into our analysis. The other piece of that future analysis is just general traffic growth. So some of the projects that you were listening to tonight and approving, they may add additional vehicles to the roadway just because of an additional apartment unit or something like that, where you're going to add a resident with a car that's not necessarily there today. The other thing to look at is just someone who doesn't have their license today, but in 7 years, maybe adding another vehicle to a household just because someone will be driving at that time. So that's included in what's known as general traffic growth. Mass DOT collects traffic volume data in the town at various locations. And they've done that historically, and they publish it so that it's available to us and to the public to be able to look at. So as we look at 10 years worth of traffic growth in the town, it's roughly or just below about a 1% growth per year, and that's compounded annually. And we take COVID out of that equation so that that's not factored into our growth rate, but it's about 1% per year. So our future conditions is basically we take our existing traffic counts, which we've done in 2023, we grow them 7 years in the future by applying that 1% growth, and then we add the traffic from Governor's Landing into that. And then on top of that, we add the traffic from the project. And that's the next slide. So this slide here shows what we expect to be the traffic characteristics of this project. So the number that you see on the top, and we'll stick with the total column, that large number is the two-way 24-hour volume. So that's 310 vehicle trips, so half going in, half going out. So as we were talking about those existing numbers on the roadway network, that's the number that gets added to 6,000. So there's 6,000 vehicles per day on 140 today. This 310 would get added on top of that number that's already out there today. So that's the way to look at that. During the morning peak hours, so this is 7 to 8 in the morning, the project's expected to produce 18 vehicle trips. 4 would be entering, 14 would be exiting. In the evening, this is between that 4:30 to 5:30 time period, the project would produce 27 vehicle trips. It's 16 entering, 11 exiting. Very often a question is asked is how come this doesn't equal the number of units that are at the project site? The reason for that is really the way we look at this residential traffic is It basically follows a curve, so the traffic ramps up. And so if we looked at it in the morning, if we looked at a longer period, let's say 6 to 10 a.m., what you'd see is a curve that happens between that 6 to 10 a.m. And the traffic volumes grow over that time period. They would peak at 18, and then they would start to slide down. So I look at that and just say it's really about not everyone leaves at once. You don't have 68 people, let's say one for each unit going down, jumping in the cars and all leaving. So it's not like the thing where the factory whistle blows and everyone gets in the car and leaves. People, depending on the work schedules, depending on if they're taking the child to school, they all leave at different times to be able to get there. And so that is reflected in the traffic numbers are here. So if we're saying 7 to 8, it's 18. If I slide that a little bit, 7:30 to 8:30, it could be 16, but it's not 18. So what we're looking at for analysis is really just looking at the high traffic volume hour generated by the project added to the high traffic volume hour on the roadway, and we analyze that. And if what we show is that the roadway network can accommodate that peak on top of a peak, if we slide the scale either way along that curve, the road will have sufficient capacity because the volumes have dropped off on either side as it relates to the project during the roadway network. So this is how we analyze the impacts of the project. So the 18 and the 27, that gets added to about 600 vehicles that are on 140 today. So that's how you look at the percent increase in traffic as it relates to the project. So you can see it's a relatively small increase as it relates to project traffic. So the other component, as I talked about, was dispersal. So once we understand how much traffic the project's going to generate, as I said, people come out of the driveway, and then depending on where they're going, if they're going to drop off a child at school, if they're commuting up to Framingham, let's say to work, or they need to get on the Mass Pike, or wherever they happen to be going, they're going to use a different travel route. So the traffic comes out to the driveway, turns left or right, and then it disperses itself onto the roadway network within the town. The way that we determine what's shown in the slide here, and this is actually how the traffic disperses itself onto the roadway network, is we look at U.S. Census Journey to Work data. So when you report your information on the census, you report where you live. One of the other things that you also report is where you work. And so we're able to look at that data that's been collected and specific to the town and understand where do people who live in this town, where do they go to work. And that's one of the components of how we develop this distribution. So if we know a certain percentage of residents of the town work in Boston, let's say, then we look at where the project site is and how do you get to Boston from this project site. And we do that for each of the communities that are identified as employment centers for persons that live within the town. And then we step back and look at existing traffic patterns. So when we do our traffic counts, that also tells us if we collect data during the morning, we collect data in the evening, we know in the morning how are people using the roadways. So we're able to then refine the analysis a little bit more to make it more fine-grained as it relates to this project site. And that's what you see in the slide here. It's almost a 50-50 distribution in terms of what comes out of the project site. It's a little more heavily weighted toward the east from the project site, so it's maybe 45, 55 in that direction, but it's pretty much balanced. And when we're talking about the small numbers, the 18 and the 27, turning left to right out of the project site, it's pretty close to 50-50. So we start with those numbers at the project site driveway, we bring them out to the intersections. This slide shows how the numbers disperse so they get smaller and smaller, and that's why we go back to, when looking at delays or impacts at the intersection, no approach on any of these roadways has any more than 10 vehicles approaching them, and no intersection has any more than 20 vehicles going through it in total, all of the approaches. And so as we're measuring delays in vehicle queuing at the intersections, that's why we're not seeing an impact in terms of delays do not go up by more than a second, and you will not see any additional cars queued up in front of you. And this, again, is looking at the year 2030. I'm also very cautious to say that doesn't mean that things are perfect on the roadway. And what you'll see as you look at our analysis is the side streets approaching Route 140 are either at or over capacity. So if you're coming on Mendon Street, that approach, I think particularly during the morning, is at its design capacity. The approaches to the School Street, Pleasant Street intersection, if you come on either one of those during both peak periods, it's over capacity. So what we look at is, well, then if it's over capacity, then that means you can't add any more traffic. Or if it's at capacity, you can't add any more traffic. And this is often said as well, once you're at a failing condition, which is what we say when we're over capacity, there's no F minus. There's not something where it gets worse. It's just an F. What we're able to look at is the queues. One of the things that the model does purport to us is it's failing, there are long delays, there's backups. So what we do, because the delays can't, the model gets to a point where it's not going to report any increased delay, but what it will tell us is those backups. How much longer does that backup happen at the intersection? And again, because what we're talking about in any of these legs is we don't have any more than 10 vehicles over the course of an hour, the intersection is able to, let's say if we add a car, it's able to process a car so that when our car gets to the back of the queue that's there, the queue doesn't get any longer. Delays don't get any better, and they won't get any better until some intervening measure takes place. But the backups that happen will not get any worse as a result of the project, just because it's not generating a lot of traffic and this dispersal. So after we've concluded that analysis and gone through that, I should say that your peer reviewers had a chance to look at this. They agree with what I presented to you. The methodology, the numbers I've presented as it relates to the amount of traffic the project is going to produce, and then the impacts of the project. They've all validated what I've presented to you. The outstanding items really are add Fisk Avenue to the study area, which we'll provide as a part of that, and providing a little bit more information as it relates to the project in relation to the MassDOT improvements, which is important because as I said, if that project's coming online in 2025, we want to make sure that whatever we're doing with the driveway and the design of it connects up to that, and that it's designed to accommodate that. So we'll be doing that as well. So the first series of recommendations that we have deal with the site plan, and these have been incorporated in the site plan. They're just really good design practices, which the applicant has incorporated into the project. So the driveway should be 24 feet in width. We need that. It's not so much to accommodate the two-way traffic. You could actually narrow that, but it's needed to accommodate fire trucks turning in and out of the driveway so that we can get them positioned properly. And so that 24 feet in width allows for that to take place. Recommendations as they relate to signs and pavement markings within the project site. There's been a lot of discussion tonight about conformance with standards, and that's really what we're saying here is you want to make sure that any signs or markings are consistent with what you would expect on the roadway. A lot of us have been driving on, you see roads with single yellow center lines with pavement markings that are white and they should be yellow. We want to make sure that as you're doing these type of things in the project that it complies with those standards. So these are really notes that typically the review consultant would say these notes need to be on the site plan, so we've provided these to the developer as well to make sure that they're incorporated in the plan. ADA compliant sidewalks and wheelchair ramps, and then landscaping. I had mentioned that we obviously want to have robust landscaping, but we want to make sure the landscaping doesn't block sight lines. So we have recommendations as they relate to making sure landscaping or any signs or setbacks don't block sight lines. And then lastly, as it relates to the sight lines, is snow, making sure that we don't have snow piles. It seems like a minor thing that's often overlooked. We usually, even as a review consultant, recommend that that's put in as a condition. You don't want the snow pile staying there too long. You want them cut down. So we provided the appropriate parameters, so to the extent that that's a condition that wanted to be worked into an approval, you're able to do that. We've given you the dimensions, and your review consultants can confirm that as well. Lastly is a transportation demand management program. So this is really about making sure that the residents are aware of the amenities that are available to them to reduce automobile trips. The important thing is having a point of contact, so a property manager that is able to provide this information to the residents as a point of contact. Also serves as a point of contact for the town. So the Council on Aging has someone to be able to coordinate with to make sure that the residents are aware of things that might be taking place in this building that the residents might want to patronize, and also getting the public transportation services that are offered. And then lastly is bicycle parking, making sure we have bike racks, exterior, and then interior weather protected bicycle accommodations. So that is the end of my presentation, and I would be happy to answer any questions you have now or later. As I said, the follow-up and the work that I need to do is deliver that supplemental assessment as it relates to Fisk Avenue, and then respond to the peer reviewers' comments, which hopefully we should be able to have that all wrapped up before the next hearing and back to your consultant. So I thank you for your attention.
Okay, thank you very much. For those that would like to see his report, the full thing is online, and you can look at the individual, like how much traffic is going in each intersection. It doesn't include Fisk. We have asked that it get added. They're going to add it. The other thing that didn't get mentioned was that the police chief mentioned in his letter was number of parking spaces. Having done a little homework on my own, they do exceed what is required for the number of spaces per unit. And oddly, I found an article saying that we're requiring too much, but oddly.
Yeah, 1.5 is the sweet spot for multifamily, and that's what the industry standard is now kind of trending toward.
But that was something that the police chief, in his letter, brought up, and I wanted to make sure. The only other thing that is Stan Tech here tonight? There we go, sir. Sir, I have read your thing. You want to come up and give a brief overview of your report to the public? The members have all probably already read it, but I think the public deserves to hear. So, for those who don't know, Stan Tech is, I'm sorry, what's your full name, sir?
I'm Evan Drew.
Evan Drew. So Evan is an engineer that we've hired to overlook all the technical details of this. We're not professional engineers. He is. So we kind of hired gun to make sure that these guys are doing their job right. I think the only thing that you added was there was one fatality on that other street that you wanted added into the traffic thing, if I remember.
In their crash data collection,
Yeah.
they did a good job collecting all the available data on Mass DOT's impact tool online, available to anyone to look at the crashes in their town. They did a good job looking at the two intersections, but within 200 feet of the site driveway were 2 injury crashes.
Yeah, and sadly, one of them was a friend of mine, whose picture and name's on the front end of this building. Jimmy Brochu, who did a lot for this community. So that he deserves a shout out because he was quite a man.
Add some context to the data,
Yeah.
We plugged the data, the engineers pulled the letters.
But it didn't appear to be in any way related to the traffic pattern at the time.
But understandably, with the new driveway, there's a new potential, and so I think it's just making sure that we're covering that, and that was one of our comments, so.
Anyway, so the floor is you, sir.
Thank you. I'm glad to see so many people excited about traffic. It's not a building or a bridge or anything really fancy, so I appreciate it. So, as we mentioned before, my name is Evan Drew. I'm an engineer with Stantec, professional traffic operations engineer, just like Jeff here. I've been doing this for 13 to 14 years now, so appreciate the opportunity to take a look at this for the town. Overall, Jeff had a pretty good presentation here that represented most of what we've already kind of talked through. He did mention, gave a little overview of some of our comments already. So I just want to give up front. So we reviewed the traffic impact study following Mass DOT's transportation impact assessment guidelines and the town of Upton's permit rules for the ZBA and bylaws and just general accepted engineering practices for traffic. We reviewed the plans dated September 13th, prepared by DNL Design Group as well to make sure some of these traffic elements and suggestions by VAI was incorporated. Per correspondence received from VAI on October 24th, Stantec expects VAI to provide a supplemental TIA evaluation that incorporates the traffic impacts at Main Street and Fisk Avenue. Although this supplement is expected and was, they let us know about it, we still made sure to include that in our comments just to make sure we were checking all the boxes. Overall, VAI's assessment included Mass DOT's project along Main Streets starting early 2025, including the roundabout construction at Main Street and Grove Street, Church Street, and all subsequent extended roadway and sidewalk improvements that include the frontage along the development. Just going into generalities, we have some specifics, which it sounds like the applicant's engineer has received or has taken a look at. In general, we would recommend VAI include further descriptions of what's actually being proposed under the Mass DOT project, if they're able to coordinate with them on that. We received just some general overviews, but it would be really nice to see what's going on at the actual site access driveway. There's some inconsistencies found between some of the general information about the sidewalks and the bicycle facilities in the town that don't necessarily reflect the site plans we received or that were created. We just aren't sure if exactly how the sidewalks proposed from the project are going to tie into both the existing or the future project. So going into some of the details, the volumes, as Jeff was able to share with us today, we reviewed the trip generation from the housing development according to the IT's most recent trip generation manual. It's our national guide to these things, as well as gas stations, everything you can think of. They've thought of it and how much traffic it will generate. Existing volumes, future projected no build volumes, and the build volumes altogether, and we have no comments. We concur with their findings of the data they've provided. Again, we wanted to add the caveat that we also need to look at Fisk Avenue when that comes up.
Water main works concluded there, so you will get better, more accurate data than we would while that was going on.
Understood. So in general, I also wanted to look at Mass DOT's guidelines regarding, as what was mentioned, what gets triggered, what are thresholds regarding new trip volumes. This project is expected to increase the amount of traffic on Main Street to about 310 vehicles per day. Mass DOT looks for at least 2,000 to trigger environmental notification forms and 3,000 average daily trips for an ENF and an environmental impact report. So we're about 10% below that level. As we mentioned before, we reviewed the crash data analysis using Mass DOT's impact crash data portal, and we concur with the findings at the two subject intersections, but we identified two crashes that were within 200 feet of the proposed driveway, and since they were both reported as injury crashes, or there's other history there too, we requested that they added that to, they have a table in their study that showed 0 crashes in front of the site driveway. We suggested that that should be revised since it's within the stopping site distance and the intersection site distance that they calculated based on the speeds they saw out there and general practices. Stantec reviewed their traffic operations analysis using all the same tools, Synchro, highway capacity manual, looking at the traffic, the average vehicle delays and the queues, and found and concurred with their findings. Again, those two intersections don't operate very well right now, and their contributions to it are not found to be very significant to the overall impacts. There's also that coming project from MassDOT that is hopefully going to help fix some of those things. I think, so in our findings, we generally were concurring with a lot of the findings within the report, again, just with reserving, looking at the Fisk Avenue and how that may impact some things. So that's in general for the traffic impacts assessment. We did have a few comments that VII, as they shared on their presentation, did include very good general recommendations, as you'd expect for traffic on a site or on your regular roads. But we were finding that they were not exactly represented on the site plans that we received from mid-September. So we suggested some updates, such as needed to include the stop sign, stop bar, stop line marking for the approach, and going back to the sidewalks and pedestrian crossings. It just looked like there was a disconnect between what's existing out there, the existing sidewalks and the existing curb cut, versus what's going to happen in the proposed. As it shows today, there could potentially be, in that site plan, 2 pedestrian crossings on that driveway within 20 feet. So we just asked for some clarity with that. And we hope that coordinating with MassDOT would help clarify some of that stuff as well, if they like to show their hand. So that's in general what we found. Again, it was a good study, and we dug through all the numbers. We went through and read the 120 pages, and
Me too.
tried our best. Some good bedtime reading. So, so we have this letter that's to the board, and looking forward. If you have any questions, anyone have any questions or comments for me?
I'm going to have the board do their questions first, and I will open it to public comment, as I did last time, and I'll do it again. No, I read your report. It's very clear. I do like the fact that you'll communicate with the other engineers directly, and if there's any disagreement or things that you think that we should add, it's okay to tell them first, but make sure you tell us too. But no, I'm very happy with what you wrote. Gentlemen, I'm going to give it up to you. You know, what your questions or concerns are.
Don't have any yet.
I'll be curious to see the results on the Fisk and Main, because that's not your average intersection. School buses go through there, 20 of them a day, 2 trips back and forth, and a total of 4. So there's a lot traffic, like Fisk and Main?
Not specific to this project, but I've known in the work I've been doing across the state and across New England, what's tough is our industry's background is the AM and the PM commute. And as you know, post-COVID, that's changed a lot. And what I'm seeing is, again, what hasn't really changed is the school pickup drop-off periods. And those I'm starting to see is where you really start to get to what the real operational issues are. So I think it's good that
I know
that's
that
really to be reviewed.
Yeah, I know the police chief is worried that someone going the 495, which a big chunk does, it's easiest to take a right-hand turn out of the project and take the right onto Fisk, and then get you over to my street, over on Hartford Ave, High Street, out to Hopkinton Road. And the police chief pointed that out. So we'll just have to sit back and see when that report gets done. The water main work is done up or put to bed for the winter. So that will make things, so there's a lot of what I would call mini speed bumps there with all the water settling.
Almost, they're gone.
Almost gone.
Almost got, oh good.
They're gone.
Yeah, they're gone. Anyways.
Yeah, as for schools, yeah, I mean, as we said, our typical metric is peak hours and hours and 60 minutes. With schools, it seems to be a peak 15 minutes, right? That is very intense and tough to evaluate over sometimes.
But we'll bring you back for more. Bob Humes, did you have any questions that you wanted to bring forth right now?
Nope, sounds good to me.
Okay.
I think a quick thing might be something about limiting right turns during certain hours, but that's really not up to us at this point, but it's just something I thought of.
It's something, I know it's something that's on the chief's mind, and that might be a potential, but they're also, it'd be interesting to see what the state does too in 2025. I've seen the plans for School Street. They're going to kind of make it a less oblique angle, but it's not a huge change down there. Okay, if you guys don't have any more questions, I'm going to open it up to the public. Now, just some ground rules. Tonight's about traffic, okay? All questions technically, legally come through me. You guys were awesome last time, and I'm going to expect you to be the same way tonight. So if you have a question, I really want to give you an opportunity. So raise your hand. You madam, the one with the glasses on her head, then I'll get to you gentlemen. Amy, now very important, Amy always wants to get notes. So last time we had you come up, or just, how do you want to do it, Amy?
Paul's requested everyone come to the podium so that they can
Okay, so Paul's requesting that you come to the podium.
faces.
Evan, don't go too far. You're not off the hook yet. No, I'm serious. You can go back.
Practice my yellow.
And just state your
There you
name
go.
and address.
Thank you, Evan.
Hello, thank you for listening to me. My name is Sue Perry. I live at 24 Hazeltine Road. I just want to make sure that everyone's aware you're going to look at Fisk Avenue. Fisk Avenue goes through 140 in two different areas. So I want to make sure that when the study's done for Fisk, it's not done on the side that nobody goes down. It's done on the side that,
the school.
yeah, exactly. So I just want to point that out, that Fisk Ave is longer than it looks. Another thing, I have worked in the retail industry for many, many years, and I've done things like figuring out when people come in to shop, what hour they come in to shop. COVID affects that as well. And it also isn't always set in stone that that many cars go through at that hour or what have you. I know that the study was done with the COVID or without COVID or whatever, but we have to consider that study that was done on the traffic isn't always going to be A+.
Yeah, for those who don't know, I think the dates were January 12th. And
January 9th, 2020.
January something, and I think you guys adjusted it 6% up for seasonal. So I'm aware it's also time of year too, and that there wasn't some adjustment made for that. But thank you, because I agree that is something that they can adjust for so much. But COVID really changed a lot of things.
It did, but a lot of the driving patterns, it's increased. I mean, I see even people going down Fisk now 85 miles an hour.
Yeah. Okay. All right.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. You, sir, had a question. Thank you. Just remember to say your name for Amy, so when he gets that. Thank you.
Dick Kennedy, 22 Hazeltine Road, Mass. So the study was done on the 9th of 2021, 3 days after January 6th. I would argue that
It was done 2023.
2023.
2023 it was done?
Yeah, this year.
All right, never mind that. The dispersion map that he put up there, and he pointed out that the School Street intersection was already at capacity. And the reason is, the Maple Street light on 140, nobody goes down that because it's always backed up. They come up Pleasant, they look down, they can see the traffic backed up, and they shoot right up Fisk. And they come right across. And if they put a light in at School Street, the only way they're gonna ever be able to stop that is to make Fisk one way in the other direction.
Yeah, I had mentioned to Mike that I had heard something about a light at school, and Mike said there's absolutely no plans for a light at school. So I had heard that too, and I went to Mike, anytime I have a question, and same with you guys, if you have a question about something, these guys are a fantastic resource, and I lean on them too. But my understanding is that there is not going to be a light at school at this time. It's not in the current plan for 140, and I'm sure the town manager will concur with that. Here we go. But, thank you. Any other questions, concerns? Yes, ma'am, come on up, and then I'll get to you next, sir. Oh, sir.
Hi, Stacy Sicarella, 16 Warren Street. I'm curious about the traffic study and have a question around the high concentration of school buses and school children and bikes, and wondering if the study includes thinking about things like a bus being double wide in 3 schools with so many school buses, if those kinds of things are taken into consideration with those high traffic peak times.
We have 2 engineers here on this. Which one would you like to have answering? There's a rise. Evan's standing, so why don't we ask him?
So typically in the traffic analysis, we don't just get the raw numbers. It's easy to present the raw numbers, but usually behind that there's a factor of is it heavier during this 15 minutes versus this 15 minutes? It may be adjusted that way, as well as in the traffic data collection, they did collect trucks, bicycles, things like that, and incorporate it into their analysis. So that came out in the overall analysis. But again, it's just percentages. So I forget the specifics, but the truck percentage was 5%. It's 5% of those 100 cars are including the buses, the semis, and that length of the vehicle, pretty typically.
And do you find that high concentrations of school buses, especially with 3 pretty large schools in a particular area, makes any difference or not? Kind of big vehicles, right? I mean, I'm going out all the time, and it's hard to see with school buses and so many children.
It depends on when the traffic data is collected.
Yeah.
So if the peak of the total volume was at 4 p.m., which is after the schools, then it will be a lower percentage. But it'll be but off those peaks will be a lower overall volume as well. So it's the balance you have there of maybe a bigger vehicle but less vehicles overall that is sometimes looked at for sensitivity.
Thank you.
Thank you. I think the Fisk Ave will catch only Memorial. It's not going to catch the other 2. The traffic, what they're going to add to the traffic study isn't going to catch the high schools. It's only going to catch Memorial.
Yeah, but the whole neighborhood, the whole area is impacted, right?
Who hasn't been stuck behind the school bus? I'm going to get to you next, sir, but this gentleman was first, so I'm going to get to him first, and I'm coming to you, okay? What's that?
Yeah, but end up here, yeah.
Okay, I promised everyone last time I would get to everybody. I did do that. I'm going to do that again. We'll get to that. Yes, sir.
Yeah, Paul Morganelli, 3 Laura Lane. And just some comments about the traffic study numbers. So I know I see there's 310 trips a day, 155 are going out, 155 coming back. That's very logical. Most of the departures are in the morning. It's heavier weighted in the evening. That's also very logical. But when I look at this peak hour, 18 trips, 4 of those are coming back, 14 of them are going out. If you've got more than half of the 155 trips leaving in that morning, you'd have to have 6 hours just to get over halfway there. You'd have to be operating at peak for over 6 hours. I understand curves and to the left and the right is gradual, but I can tell you, I'm semi-retired now. I walk downtown to the deli many times during the day, and there's not very much traffic out there in the middle of the day. So when I see these numbers, they're just not adding up to what I see. It kind of reminds me of, like I'm watching the old Marx Brothers movie, Duck Soup, and Chico Marx says, you're going to believe me or you're going to believe your own eyes. And the numbers I'm seeing just don't add up to what I see there. And I drive out in the morning when I do go to work, and I almost get creamed crossing Route 140 to get from Fisk over to, Fisk on the other side.
I don't know how to really respond to that. Do you want Evan or the other to give? I do know that if you look in the table, you can actually see all the raw data. They gave us the raw data for what the numbers are. I know you don't trust the numbers, but the raw data is in the traffic report for you that everyone here can go and look at.
I know what I see there during the day. I just don't see how you're going to get that most of those 155 departures at in the morning when you have a peak hour of 14.
Yeah, if you're right for 20 times what gets you to 150, you'd need to have 7.5 hours in the morning, and there's not 7.5 hours in the morning. So I understand that. Can you clarify that for him? How? I mean, I saw the raw numbers. I know what they are.
And I had a second comment too, if you want to address both of them. But,
sure, go for it.
So the second one was about the traffic numbers, and I saw that the January study was up 6% because January traffic is down. But I also saw that the traffic numbers were not COVID adjusted because that's not required for residential housing. But I think this isn't just residential housing. This is a pretty big building. And I think these numbers should be...
It's not a commercial...
I'm sorry, it's not commercial, but it's bigger than a lot of commercial buildings. And so it may not be a requirement that you have to have COVID-adjusted numbers for a residential building. But I think it would be, prudent to do that. I know that I have a relative who was a civil engineer for the town of Franklin, and I've heard that they're having trouble with some of their traffic studies because they're not COVID adjusted. I mean, people didn't go to work, people didn't go to school during COVID, and that should be factored in for buildings this size.
I understand what you're saying, and I hear what you're saying. The hard part is that, and you guys, please, both of you can chime in, is that they have to follow certain standards and practices within the industry, and when you throw in adjustments that aren't validated, procedures have to be validated. If you do certain things in engineering a certain way, you've got to show that that's a valid way of doing it. And once you have it validated, then you can apply it to multiple situations. I don't know how we could adjust for COVID, because I know, for example, a large number of people still work from home, even though the worst of the pandemic is over.
Traffic has changed a lot in the past few months. I've seen that driving to work. I mean, it's gotten almost back to normal. I don't know how, but I can tell you the delays that were there before COVID are there again, just over the past few months.
Okay. Do either one of you want to take a swag at giving them a response? Since you wrote the report, we'll let you do it. All right, thank you, sir. And if you have a follow-up, we'll try to give you a shot there and answer.
I think just, we'll start with the COVID adjustment. So I think as he had mentioned, Mass DOT issued an engineering directive, and the engineering directive says that any traffic study prepared in the Commonwealth we're no longer to apply COVID adjustments. That for any traffic counts that were performed after March of 2022. So this is statewide, and that's basically for the cliche. They're considering anything from March 2022 going forward is the new normal. So all traffic studies, all analyses that are done in the state as they relate to private development projects, but also roadway projects in the Commonwealth, there's no COVID adjustments anymore. There is a methodology for COVID adjustments that still exists. And the reason for that is that if we do a project in an area that's heavily office space, so if we have an office park that we all know people are working from home, those buildings are not fully occupied. So if we're looking at traffic volumes as they relate to that type of a scenario, we do, and they recommend that we do a COVID adjustment. And what we're adjusting is not the traffic produced by the project. So when we're talking about the trip generation for the project, what you heard your consultant mentioning is we have an industry database of traffic studies done for multifamily residential consistent with this project that tells us if we know the number of units, we can estimate the amount of traffic that's generated. What they've done for that database is excluded all studies that were done during COVID. So those numbers are independent of COVID and don't reflect COVID. COVID adjustments are applied to the traffic on the roadway. So we measure the traffic on the roadway. What we used to do prior to March of 2022 was apply a COVID adjustment. So we increased those traffic volumes. The methodology was really looking at 2019 traffic counts and comparing them to 2022 traffic counts at the same point on the roadway, and then looking at what that variation is. What MassDOT has found is what everyone is saying and what we're experiencing, which is that volumes have returned back to normal or close to normal. So what they're saying is no longer do they want inflated volumes. That was causing a lot of problems as it relates to, you're talking about traffic signals. When we inflate the traffic volumes and then all of a sudden it says we need to put a traffic signal in, when the reality is the volumes aren't there and they're not going to be there for some time, and we make a decision to invest the money to build something, it doesn't make any sense. So that's why they've come back and said the new normal is what's happening today. So we don't make any adjustments for COVID unless we're in a place where there's a lot of vacant office space, then we do make an adjustment for that. As it relates to the peak hour volumes and the daily number, one of the things that we do have available to us, and I think it might be helpful when I produce the next iteration of the report, the data that we also have shows 24 hours a day how that 150 vehicles or 310, each hour of the day I can tell you how much traffic the project's going to produce. So I think what might be helpful is just provide that graph. It's available, your consultant can look at it, and it might be helpful just to understand, so everyone will be able to look and say, I leave my house at 6 a.m., how much traffic is this project going to produce? Or similar to what we were talking about with the school, if we know what time the school starts and stops their time period, you can also look at this graph and say how much traffic is the project going to produce at 1:30 in the afternoon or 2:30 in the afternoon. Okay. Because we may not be analyzing it, as was mentioned, as we're looking at peak hours, but at least you'll be able to say this project's going to add this number of cars during the school peak period. So I think that might be helpful just to explain how that 14 fits into the course of the day. That it's easy enough to produce that. And we'll provide it so your consultant can look at that as well.
Thank you. Okay, there was a gentleman in the way back there, and I'll get you up.
That's okay, you can take him first.
Oh, well,
Yeah, I know.
I'll get to the, when you show up, I give you front row,
Good evening, it's Rick McGuire, 11 Whitney Lane.
Yep.
And just a couple quick comments, and I want to comment towards the future study on Fisk Avenue. First of all, I want to thank the group for coming in here with the traffic studies, because we actually have some statistics to look at as opposed to having kind of a hand-waving discussion. So I appreciate that. What I'd like to add some comments to is something so that we can enhance or make complete the study of traffic flowing through Fisk Avenue. Right now, for instance, this morning, I came down Fisk Avenue and was going to take a right towards the BP and go towards Grafton, West Upton. And we had at the school a queue backed up of people in their cars waiting to go into the school. The traffic was backed up on Main Street. It was from the entrance of the school back to Fisk. Many mornings, it's past Fisk and goes down Main Street. So that is between the hours of about 8:15 and 9. So I would like to have a study done when they do the study, to be out there and look at the traffic during that time frame.
I've seen
the other thing going on is when we look at traffic and the growth and what's going on in the area, we have a lot of people that are growing in Northbridge. Northbridge is increasing in population. Douglas, Uxbridge, Grafton. These people are all heading to 495. And in the past, they always went up Hartford Ave High Street and would go across School Street. But what's become evident to the citizens, both commuting through town and the citizens, is that we have the Mendon Street at Pleasant, as pointed out in the study, under capacity, or over capacity is the right word, not allowing sufficient traffic. And on School Street, we have over capacity going on plus high accidents. People commuting through town have picked that up, and so have the citizens. So now they're cutting through Fisk Avenue. It's generally between 7:30 and 8. The school people are coming in there, and Fisk Avenue has all the traffic coming from the school buses. As one of the persons that spoke said, between High Street and Main Street, you have the street going down, but if you continued straight, you'd drive into the hardware store. So the rest of Fisk Avenue that goes down to Pleasant is a jog. And so we have the school buses queued up, there's a heavy traffic congestion. So what I'm suggesting is that we do the study and we look at the times when the traffic's heaviest. And I can tell you between 2 to 3, traffic is heaviest in the school area on Fisk Ave. The commuters come through between 4:30 and 5:30. So if we could do the study and actually study it with people looking at the traffic, we get a better picture. The other thing is, I appreciate the numbers. They were done probably in the 2020 census, which is great. But you know the old rhubarb, historical data does not predict the future. But we have people coming to work now that weren't working before due to COVID. They're passing through the area. We have more people that have come into the area that are west of us that commute through. But I'd like to make certain we do that study to just get an accurate view. Thank you.
Thank you, valid point. And I'm gonna ask too that you make sure you put eyeballs on what he's talking about in the morning, those queues in the afternoon, because the parents do park along the road.
They
So-
park along Fisk too.
Yeah, yeah. And so it's something, make sure you have eyeballs on the ground at those specific times. We would ask that too. I think that's
The
very
data,
valid.
the way we collect traffic on data nowadays, it used to be the person sitting, it was usually a retired person in a car with a clipboard that counted the cars. It's not done that way anymore, it's actually video cameras. So the nice thing about that is some of the things that were mentioned, it's going to show up in the video recording. So that we're able to see that. It helps us to understand those conditions as well, but also the conditions of when you do have the backups, the throughput on the roadway, the vehicles can't get there, they're clogged up someplace else, so we don't get true throughput because they're backed up at a certain location. So we also are able to see those type of phenomena that happen.
Thank you. Yes, sir. Then I promise I'll get to her.
That's
next.
okay.
What's the
I'm not
name of that? I can't read
John
that.
Reed.
John Reed. We'll get to John next. He's been very patient.
Pat Early, 13 Whitney Lane. Couple of things. One, I wanted to request, there was some photographs that showed from butters to the building. I'm wondering if we could get similar shots at this time of year that would show the butters to the road. So we get some idea of what the oncoming traffic is going to look like for those that abut on the road.
Which road are we referring to?
The road that goes up to the building.
The driveway.
The driveway.
Kevin, what are your thoughts?
I can try to do that. I'm not sure what we're trying to achieve, but.
Yeah, so are you talking Hazeltine, or you're talking 140? Where, from the perspective from where to where?
I live on Whitney Lane.
So
And
Whitney
my next door
Lane.
neighbor looks like his backyard is gonna butt right up sort of against the road. So I'm just trying to wonder what the photographs and projections would look like from his backyard and my backyard.
Okay. I will say that the computer projections of what it would look like were extremely well received. I've had a number of people come up to me and say, oh, it wasn't as big or as massive. Very well received. Can I suggest that you give him your actual address?
Sure.
And maybe he can specifically come to a better understanding of exactly where you'd like to have that produced from?
Sure. That's exactly what I'm looking for. It'd be great. Appreciate it.
Because I'm very glad that he's been engaging with the neighbors more, and that would be useful, because there are a number of people that found those very useful.
And I'm just sort of representing my next door neighbor, but he's gonna get a closer shot of it than I am, and I know he couldn't be here tonight, so.
Yeah. We will have a separate meeting that includes things like the plantings and things like that. That will be a big component of the conditions. But if you can grab Kevin, or vice versa, get the address.
I just have one other question.
Oh, yes, sir.
I'm a big bike riding fan, and I'm wondering if there's gonna be a bike path on this driveway to help the residents get out to the bikeways that are going to be on 140. That's my question.
You just said yes, okay. John Reed? That is,
Yes.
John?
Thank you.
You want to ask your question, sir?
Address?
Oh, address please, John.
John Reed, 19 Whitney Lane. I appreciate all the information on the traffic study and what's to come. And I just wanted to reiterate what others have said about Fisk Avenue and my concerns. As a resident of Whitney Lane, and I'm retired, if I go down Fisk Avenue and attempt to go left to get to Milford, it can be very difficult at times, particularly during rush hour. Now, what does that mean to the rest of us? Well, the same thing, I believe, would apply to the residents of this apartment building. They approach 140 Main Street and they have to go towards 495. Are they going to make a left turn or a right turn? My prediction is they're going to make a right turn and then make another right turn on Fisk. So I just wanted to support others who believe this to be the case. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else here that would like to make a comment? Sure, come on up.
Am I the last?
Only if no one else wants to. I try to make sure everyone gets to speak.
Thank you. I'm Mary Ellen Kennedy, 22 Hazeltine Road. I have a few questions and some comments. So one is, I wouldn't do the Fisk Ave study right now because traffic is still not to where it was before. People still think the road is closed. So I would wait another month. Go ahead.
We have 5 months left.
Okay. Well, then I would go as long as we can. Because people don't realize the traffic is nowhere near what it had been before the construction on Fisk.
Yeah, it's just timetable's really tough, to be honest with you.
I think in 5 months, I believe people will be aware it's reopened, but I wouldn't do it this month because I don't think people are aware it's open. Two, when you talk, and I know everything's statistics, but when you talk about residential complexes this size, I assume you're including ones in the city, right? Which people don't need cars in the city. So I think the cars, you can't live in Upton without a car, in all honesty. So I think, let me finish my comment. So I'm assuming, and I know.
I'm assuming he's doing it just.
It's suburban.
It's just suburban?
Suburban with no, if we were in the city, we'd apply adjustments.
So they separate them out?
Right, they do.
And they still only say 1.5 parking spots, huh?
Correct.
That's the sweet
In
spot.
this, if you go to urban near a train station, it's like 1 or close to 1. Yeah, it's much lower than that.
I don't know a house that has less than 2 cars. Okay, it's that. And the snow removal, you said you're going to be cognizant of not having the traffic view. So where is the snow going to go?
There would be somewhere that they would either need to remove it or put it someplace else within the project site. And it's
On
only,
property?
Yeah, it's only if the piles get higher than 3.5 feet, then you need to cut them down. And the town typically does that anyway. You see the state doing it. You just don't want it sitting there for a long time. It's important. Private development, if they're pushing the snow up to the side, that it's in the public right of way, but it's usually the town may not come and do that. So you want it cleared so it either be trucked or put someplace else on the site.
I understand that. Now, I know we're only talking traffic, but this is related because we already had concerns about drainage, as you know, and what does snow do? It melts. So if you're taking that snow from the end and you're putting it on site, it's got to go somewhere, right?
It would be on-site.
You're going to remove the snow
I always
forever?
remove snow.
Can we have that in a contract somewhere? That it will always be removed off-site going forward and never be left on property, regardless of who owns the property? Honestly, it's you say that, and I agree you might do that, but if the property is ever sold, that might not occur. So that's a concern. Let's say, I had no.
That's a standard condition. The board can add that upon voting.
Thank you. Okay. I think those are all my concerns at this point.
Thank you.
Oh, yes, I'm sorry. In the police department's report, they talked about line of sight, especially with the funeral at Pickering's, and with the traffic. We talked about the traffic going into Fisk, but honestly, when there's a funeral, which can be somewhat frequently, you have no line of sight. So I think a study needs to be done with that concern in mind, both for parking at the school and for the funeral parlor. Unless you ban parking on Main Street. Okay,
No, I just chuckle like, I just hope someone I don't, it's not someone I know.
No, we can pretend and park cars there.
Anyways, thank you. We've had a lot of really good concerns. Board members, before I wrap this up for the evening, do you guys have any questions or concerns that you want? Because this is an opportunity to give them questions they may not have the answer to, but that you want to have them to find the answer.
Mine's just the Fisk
I think
Fisk.
Main Street and the buses in the school.
Yeah, and with the parents parking on the side of the road, getting into the school, morning, afternoon. Sorry, I'm sorry I didn't see you. The line of sight was just right. Why don't you come on up? Thank you, Eric. I'm just seeing her head.
Marcia Keselowski, 10 Whitney Lane. I appreciate that, and I was in the back, so I may have heard this wrong, but Governor's Landing was taken into consideration, the traffic, is that correct?
Yes.
Yes.
Someone else had talked about all the traffic that's coming through our town now, and with affordable housing and all the building going on in the towns on the other side of us, are we looking at the projects that are currently planned for these towns? Because we're going to get flooded with traffic from these new affordable housing units.
Generally, you can, if you look at the traffic study, they show you the exact area that they're studying. They're looking at the numbers coming through currently and projected out 7 years? 7 years, what's projected for the next 7 years. The purview of the studies are not what's happening in Sutton and North Bridge and things like that. But the growth that's predicted to come through town is already included up to the year 2030.
With the density of affordable housing and with the new MBTA rules and so forth?
I don't know how to answer about that,
Okay.
because it's a town-by-town thing, what's going to happen with that.
Okay.
Different towns, who just did it last night? Someone just did it last night. Brookline just changed their zoning last night, or the night before, after a scathing report in the Globe about what they hadn't done for the last 20 years. So no, it doesn't reflect that change.
Yeah,
And we understand that.
if there's any way to take that into consideration, because I have a feeling that we're going to get killed as more high-density housing goes up on the other side of us, because we just see so much traffic coming through our area now, especially with you people using Waze. They direct them to this. The other thing with the number of parking units, 111, I believe, was in the report, and you, on top of that, you have the EV charging stations, which I think are now required, and you have the handicap spaces, and some of them are paid garages, which only a few people have access to. So, and visitor parking, I'm really concerned that they're going to be blocking emergency vehicles.
You know,
I'll just bring it
I
up.
actually came down to visit Mike today to ask this specific question, if that 1.5 was the right ratio. And, because I was concerned. And I went home and I did a whole bunch more research. And lo and behold, the state is actually reporting that it's too high. The 1.5 is too high.
Well, if you take out the visitor and the handicap and everything, then it makes sense, but.
You know, it's funny, I didn't know. So I went and tried to find out, and they didn't offer to adjust it downward, and they're keeping it at the 1.5. But the 1.5 they're saying is actually too much. I was shocked. I didn't know. I came to Mike today to ask that same question. So I would, if you would like, I can, if you want to give me your email address, I can forward some of the articles that I found on that topic. Or, I don't know if Evan or you would have, I mean, it's probably more technical than what I found, but I was shocked. But I was curious too.
Yeah, I would assume they would adjust for the handicapped, which don't really get used that much, the EV charging stations, which aren't going to get used that much, the garages, which you have to pay extra for, which kind of cut back. So I'm wondering where they came up with the ratio.
It's not something for this project. It is I want to say, I don't know if it's national or it's just Massachusetts, the 1.5.
There's a Massachusetts-specific study, but
Yeah.
nationally, it's, and this is for multifamily residential. It's the 1.5 is, as I said, the sweet spot. The actual demand is less than that.
I want to say it was 1.38 or something.
Yes, that's the measured demand.
We have many projects that are, identical in not necessarily the size, but the unit breakdown, the garages, the handicap, and all of our properties are 100% rented and leased. And we count, we're usually around 1.35.
Yeah, that's what I say, 1.38.
Of actual boots on the ground. We check that stuff all the time.
And Mr. Chairman, you may want to ask the applicant if they're seeking any waivers from the parking requirements under the bylaw. I don't think that you are.
You're not seeking any waivers.
Just the definition of
to
service.
amend that waiver list.
Yeah.
Because I don't think it was accurate. So we will be looking for a waiver. The best example, there's the data from ITE, which I think has turned out to be consistent and reliable. But at 149 Main, 44 units, the unit mix there is almost, in terms of average number of bedrooms, is almost exactly the same as is proposed here. And again, the parking, you've got more parking there, but the demand is at 1.35. The parking garages, we wish we could do more because there is demand. If you take a look at the profile of the current residents at 149, I believe 44%, correct me, were 55 or plus. Those are residents who like to have a garage because they've had enough snow. I feel their pain.
Yeah.
So we're very comfortable with the parking ratio that was set.
Okay. Tonight's all about traffic, but I will want to mention, have to look at the waiver page. It's 13 pages of waiver requests. I would say, pare it down to specifics. Some of it's really broad. Just as a future, I happen to be looking at that when I sat down to do my homework for tonight. I happened to look through the waiver lists for things like that.
The only reason I brought it up is that I lived in apartments where there wasn't enough parking, and it was a nightmare.
Yeah.
So,
Well, thank you, because I'm telling you, I had the same question.
thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Anyone else that wanted the question? Oh, yes, sir.
About the Tic Tacs.
I was wondering.
Bob Norrow, still from 57 Main Street. Haven't been able to sell it yet and get out of town quick, as I feel like I should. One of the things I'm glad to hear, I think I know I'm going to invest. I'm going to start investing into the stock for the company that builds those smart cars at 0.5 large. There'll be a lot of those up now this town. Those little shrink cars. But anyhow, I want to confirm something. Did I hear about the future traffic growth? What was that percent per year?
1%.
That's what I thought I heard. It kind of hit me when I keep on hearing about, oh, we've had 15% inflation. Seems to me, I'm paying about 2.5 times what I was paying for anything a year or two ago. I cannot believe what the things that are brought up. As far as the different increased traffic, the different towns, those are going up, that we're only going to have 1% increase of traffic per year. That sure sounds like some of the stuff we're hearing from a certain administration that's given us a lot of
We're
stories.
not doing politics.
I'm not mentioning any politics. What I'm mentioning is when people are fighting
I
at
run
you.
a strict meeting, we are not going down that road.
Okay,
So,
well, what I'll say
sir,
with-
tonight is about what? Traffic.
Great. Seems to me tonight's a lot about, we're gonna get something jammed down us, that a few people have already agreed, most of the people who come here are already making their living on it one way or the other, either designing it, engineering it, making sure that everything says exactly what we need to say to get this thing up, because it's already decided it's gonna go through. And this is what we're gonna be doing. That's what it sure seems to me. So no matter what you have invested in a board in, you're gonna get stuck with this housing project in the backyard, or hotel, should I say. But thank you.
I respect your opinion, I respect your right to have that opinion. We're focusing on traffic tonight. It is challenging. Did you come to the first meeting? Because this guy gave a really good presentation on what a 40B, what the state regs were on the 40B. And if you didn't get a chance to come, his presentation got recorded. And you can actually watch I believe you can watch the old meetings. He did a really good job. And I compliment him for that. So it is challenging. The state does have a very high bar for this sort of thing. Any other questions on traffic? Any other questions, concerns? Okay, because it's 8:45. Gentlemen, you guys, any questions, concerns that you guys all have? Because you're good for now. Good for now. All right. I'm assuming the same with Bob. Can I get is there any other business we need to do? Mike and Amy?
Do you want to talk about, or just ponder about what topics should be addressed at the next meeting? Will we have Fisk and Maine submitted and reviewed by then?
No.
I don't know how.
Can't do it yet. Yeah.
I guess we would need a little bit of direction, because I mean, we have done some counts, and it's,
But we've had
yeah, no, I know,
construction on
it's not, your historic experience,
Right.
it's not what's happening.
Correct.
So,
Hold on, guys, hold a second. Things have got to be through the board, Chairman.
Typically with traffic, I tend to just, as a custom, have it kind of come at the end, at the tail end, in case the project changes in any ways. Vanessa knows what they need to do. We can handle other topics and then come back to traffic unless the board feels like this thing really needs to be nagged right away.
No,
before we get
I
to
think
other
if we come to it later, then we kind of help what you're looking about, getting past that time frame. I would not want it to be done Christmas week, so that sounds like a good idea. I know one of my major concerns, and board members, one of my major concerns has been water. Would we be ready, and would Stantec be ready to look at the water management plans and stuff like that by that time, for the next meeting? Or what do you think you can be ready? Because there's different pieces of this pie. What piece of pie can we get to in 30 days?
We could get your report on the stormwater management.
There we go. So next time is going to be on stormwater management. Yes, sir.
We're going to do stormwater. Are we going to do a hydrogeologic study to really determine the water that's coming down from High Street?
I don't think that is required.
And I would say the storm water planning is it's not going to be accurate. We've had a history of the bills in all the neighborhoods of some degree of flooding. And if we don't do a hydrogeologic study, I'm sorry.
Sir, I told everyone here what was my number one concern. Water. We are this potentially, if what you originally guys said about releasing less water from the site, can help people downhill. I believe, sir, you're uphill.
That is correct.
And this is, I don't see how in any way, shape, or form, anything that's done downhill of you is going to help uphill of the project. Because water doesn't flow up, it flows down. So,
With all due respect, though, I'm not looking for it to make it any better. I'm worried about it making it a heck of a lot worse for the uphill. And that's not right.
you know what, I'm going to defer this to, we got some professionals that really know this stuff.
You want to put the residents at ease
Find out
with this
underground
development.
stuff. It makes
Yeah, but
sense
you know what,
in
this
my
is going
head.
to sound crazy, but we don't have the right to demand things that aren't required.
You can ask.
But the town
Yeah.
can fund
The town should do
it. Why can't the town
We
do
can
it?
ask.
You can ask.
We can ask the town to do it.
Mike's saying we can ask.
But,
What's entailed?
but here's my suggestion, and Chris,
I think I know what you're gonna say.
is why don't we address the stormwater, because those plans have been submitted and need to be reviewed. So
Okay.
we do still need to have stormwater addressed. And then this conversation that we're starting to have tonight can happen on that night, and we can have a more in-depth conversation about the possibility of asking for a hydrological study and all those things.
You're good with that?
I concur, yeah.
Okay. You guys, Stan Tech, you good with that?
Well, reviewing the need for a hydrogeologic study.
How would you two express it, Liz?
Yeah, well, I think we're gonna review stormwater, and if you feel additional studies are required, you can certainly recommend that to the board.
I mean, in general, the stormwater report is going to deal mainly with the surface water flow, not groundwater.
Thank
So
you.
that's a whole different task that, to be honest, we're not in a contract.
Sure, so we don't have.
Saying, you know,
Right.
Okay, so we can talk to the applicant between now and a stormwater review about that topic.
So we'll deal with the surface stuff next meeting, stormwater.
Okay.
And you guys, you two have the conversation with Kevin as to the other.
Yes.
A geologic study has not gone through this board. I've never seen one on my watch. And it's been probably 4 or 5 40Bs at this point. Okay, you know, I'm willing to take suggestions, but let's get that worked out.
Yeah. It's just a matter of taking the next step, Chair, taking the next step to address the next matter, and then taking
So-
that and having the logical next step to have that other conversation, that's all.
Okay.
It's just addressing it in a linear fashion.
And Mike, can you, for us, kind of look at that schedule? We got only 5 months left, so 5 meetings. Can you slice the pie for us as to what the order you want us to go in?
Yeah.
And, yes, sir.
Just a comment to the chair.
Yep.
Yes, to your earlier comment about the water flows downhill, we all recognize that. But here's the thing, there's standing water in 51, and the depth of the water table is about 3 inches. There's standing water, there is a spring out there, or one of the pipes is putting water in that thing, it's going downhill. But when they put the road in, that's going to act as a dam and start backing the water back up the hill. And most of our neighbors have sinkholes in their property. I put 3 cubic yards in last year, 2 the year before. And it's not just the neighbors sitting here complaining. These water issues are going to affect Mr. Loberser and his property, because he's going to have the same issues.
I understand that, sir, but I've spent this entire week, this is gonna sound stupid, in a trench digging on School Street.
Yeah, we hear you.
Yeah, I mean, literally, my boots have been in the mud. When you build a road, the last thing you want to do is make it, other than the top layer of a nice dirt road, but you want to be smooth, you can use a teeny bit of clay. But when you put a road in, you put in gravel and stone. You don't put in clay. When you make a dam, you put a layer of clay on it to hold the water back. That's the last thing anyone's going to want to make a road out of. you guys did you do that? I believe they did test holes over there, and they found the same soil. They just did this very recently, right? And they found the same soil that I had over on School Street. It's a coarse grayish sand. It's almost like ground up granite. It's coarse. I was very happy when I found that on my land because it's something that the water flows through very easily. Probably too easy for you guys because you're seeing that water coming down through the hill. But I know you just did the soil samples, and am I correct in what you found, the gray sand?
Yep, normal uppings.
Yeah, it's the same stuff I've got on my property. That actually, the water flows through it wonderfully well. You're not planning on bringing clay in for your road, are you?
No.
He's not bringing clay in. Okay, so roads generally made of gravel, and I just happen to know because my feet have been all muddy and dirty all week, exactly what's down there for soil this week. Our sites, I mean, I'm probably only 100 feet beyond the not even being able to vote on this. That's how similar the soils are. And the very first thing I did on my site, before I even owned it, was to bring a backhoe down there and dig into it and see what was for soil. So I do understand your concern, and I told everyone here, and I'll say it again, my number one concern is water. School Street in particular has had some pretty big impacts, frankly, from your houses that got put up there. So, you know, it's something we want to help take care of. If they do it right, they can actually make the problem better and be less of a problem for School Street. But it has to be engineered. It's not something you just throw together. All right, guys, it's getting late.
Mr. Chairman, just one point, because I want to make sure that we're comfortable about what's happening. I don't know if we want to just do stormwater. Usually we have a civil night, and that's part of stormwater. If you want to
So a whole civil night?
Yeah, because I don't know if that makes more sense to you to do a whole civil overview, and I don't know if you have time to do that. Or if you feel comfortable just reviewing stormwater in one night.
I mean, I don't have an issue. I think stormwater is something we could definitely do by the next meeting. I think the civil component, I mean, we were going to look at some of the roadway alignment, some of the parking, some of the roadway layout. I mean, we could probably give you some initial comments, but I wouldn't want to say it would be a complete civil review of the next meeting, but I think we could focus on stormwater.
It's going to get tough because you're going to lose time for things like Thanksgiving, and then very quickly after that you're going to hit Christmas, and it's not the most productive time. But we have a deadline, so why don't we do that? You try to come in with civil. You guys can be a little bit prepared as much as you can. We understand what can't be done yet, but this is meeting number 2. It's 6 months is the window. This means we're 2 months in. We have 4 months left. So, yeah, fast. So 4 months.
How about the weather? Does that affect that?
Nope.
Anything with the?
Nor the holidays.
With the water testing?
What's that? What?
It ends in
I'm
April.
sorry.
So December,
Sorry, we
January.
started it last month. This is 1 month, right? 5, which is close. I mean, that comes up really fast. And I just want everyone to be aware of the timetable we're on. All right. Can I get a motion, gentlemen? So we're adjourned.
No.
Geez, Mike's going to make me work longer. Mike.
You need a motion to continue.
Oh, sorry, yes.
The public hearing to.
We'll give Eric that one. He's usually my.
To December 20th, here in the community center, 6:30 p.m.
All right, I move that we continue this hearing to December 20th here in the community center, 6:30 p.m.
I second it.
Aye.
Oh, sorry. Vote of the board.
I second it.
But you got to say your first name.
Don Spargo, aye.
Bob Butler, aye.
Eric Russell, aye.
Bill Andrews, aye. Bob Humes?
Bob Humes, aye.
Okay, unanimous vote of the board. All right, I'll take a motion to adjourn.
Approve minutes.
Oh.
It's almost there. I have to approve my minutes. I worked hard on those.
Fine. I have to, I'm being told what to do here. All right, seriously, okay. Wait a second, is that even on the agenda? Oh, all right. So thank you, folks. All right, any questions on the October 18 minutes, guys? Eric, can I get a motion?
Minutes from the October 18th meeting.
You already did it. Second it.
Second.
Okay, vote of the board.
Don Spargo, aye.
Bill Andrews, aye. Bob Humes. Here we go. Okay. Now can we do it? Can we go home?
That was for the minutes?
That was a minute, we just approved them.
Yes.
All right, sir, let's go back to you.
Make a motion to adjourn.
Vote of the board.
Don Spargo, aye.
Bill Andrews, aye.
Eric Russell, aye.
And Bob Humes. All right, thank you all, everybody.